Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Fighters Block. I am your host, Jesse Rivas, being joined by my partner as always, Mr. Joe Gilpin. Say hello to the folks.
Hello, folks. How's everybody doing? How you doing this week, Jesse?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I love the representation there with the AEW. Big fan of professional wrestling, so used to be a professional wrestler. Boom.
Yeah, you should talk about that more on stage. Stop. That was just an excuse to get you to flex. God damn it. We're fucking less than 60 seconds into this show, and you're already wearing tight-ass shirt. Look at this motherfucker with his tight-ass shirt. The best, by the way, if you ever need to, get a big laugh at a comedy show, just say that. Just point at an audience member and say, look at this motherfucker in his tight-ass shirt. Tight-ass shirt wearing motherfucker. Everyone, it'll crush. It'll crush. I guarantee it. Man, we saw a great lessons you learned from the Kings of Comedy. We saw a great weekend of fights last week, Jesse.
Dude,
that was a fucking good weekend of fights.
The week prior was the beginning of fight season, right? We started seeing all the fights being booked and everything looks good going all the way up into the summer. But yesterday was, or better yet, this past weekend was the one that really got me excited. Man, we could start wherever you want. The MMA, the boxing.
How do we not start with Berchelt and Valdez, right? To me, that was the biggest thing of the weekend. That was the biggest fight of the weekend. And it ended up probably being the best performance of the weekend. And it had a lot of competition for that. This was a great weekend of boxing. A lot of times we come on here and we talk about great fight in MMA. MMA won the weekend. To me, boxing won the weekend for sure. UFC kind of punted, like this wasn't the strongest card for sure. But holy fuck, Oscar Valdez.
Jesus. Oh my God. So going into the fight, I think you gave Valdez a way better shot than I did. I was with the general media that said
I gave him a better shot than everybody.
Yeah, you did.
Here's another one where I feel like I'm on a little bit of a heater. I ultimately did pick Berchelt though, so I don't fully credit myself for it.
Going into had more balls. This was a Berchelt fight to win. We thought Berchelt was too big. We thought he was in his prime. And we thought that Valdez may have been a little bit damaged after getting his jaw broken against Scott Quigg. But in this fight, we got to see everything that they had promised us with the move to the Reynosos. They had been with the Reynosos now, who's Canelo's trainer in his training camp, for a couple of fights now, but we haven't seen exactly what was promised in the move. And they said, hey, this is a work in progress. And this was the fight. This is the big fight that showcases. This is actually his first step-up fight, if you really think about it. He's beaten the gatekeepers. He's beaten the lower-level champions. Berchelt is like that first signature victory that kind of lets the world know, hey, this is a world-class motherfucker.
A couple weeks ago, or whenever the Ryan Garcia step-up happened, we kind of talked about what it took to make something a step-up fight. Miguel Berchelt was one of the best fighters under 150. This is not a step-up. This is just the test.
No, you know what? I'll take it back. This was a test because Scott Quigg was a past his prime, lower weight class guy who moved up to fight him. He was a tough veteran. But no, this was the fight. He just leaped into the fight. So I take that back a bit.
Yeah.
How did you see this? How did you feel like this either change your opinion of Valdez or change your opinion of Berchelt?
So a couple things. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk nice about Oscar Valdez. Oscar Valdez came in. His speed looked incredible. I thought his ability to turn Berchelt all night looked great. I think his work with Eddie Reynoso is obviously paying off. I don't think there's any debate. Something horrific or maybe even amazing would have to happen. Something would really have to change for Reynoso to not be trainer of the year at this point.
Or in February. Right? We're talking about this in February.
Straight up. And he showed great power. A lot of people are saying we can talk about the stoppage in a minute, maybe. It almost couldn't have gone better for Valdez. And I would say this skyrockets him up to maybe as high as number 2 in the world, only behind Gervonta Davis, who is probably leaving the division pretty soon anyway. Speaking of leaving the division soon, this might be the last time we ever see Berchelt at 130 pounds because he looked rough on the scale. He looked rough when he got in the ring, and he didn't have a lot of fire until he had already really taken a whooping. This was not – we were kind of promised a war of two guys coming together with some spectacular violence. Valdez held up his end of the bargain. Miguel Berchelt did not. Jesse, do you feel like COVID might have had a role to play here? Because Berchelt did have to pull out of their first fight with COVID, and he comes into this fight and he just looks drained from the beginning in a way that he's never been. He's always been Mr. Consistency. Do you feel like that might have played a part? It's a little awkward guessing because we don't know like his medical history.
It's so difficult to guess these kind of things. Is it an amazing performance by Valdez? Did he do something that was just a perfect game plan against a guy who he's known since he was in his early teens? Or was it that Berchelt finally, he's what, 30 now? He's been at this weight class now since he was in his early 20s. Did he finally reach that part where his body matured to the point where it just can't cut the weight anymore? And we've seen that. I don't think we will ever really be able to tell because honestly, after that knockout and that destruction, I don't know if we're ever going to see the same Berchelt again.
We don't ever see it, right? It's very rare that we'll ever see it. There's guys that are able to overcome being knocked out in that way. But even like Manny Pacquiao's career suffered from the Marquez knockout. You know what I mean? Which is kind of what I would put this up to. Maybe not that. It's not quite the same because this was more of a destruction leading up to it. And the Pacquiao Marquez thing was just more of a shock. But this was an absolutely vicious knockout. And we talked about Reynoso maybe locking up trainer of the year here in February. That probably, think about what would have to happen for that not to be knockout of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in a fight that caliber, a guy overperforming that much, fight with a lot of drama behind it. I mean, it would really take something pretty special for Oscar Valdez not to be top 2 at least when it comes to knockout of the year.
No, I completely agree with you. I think that's a phenomenal performance. But I will say that my concern for Berchelt, and I think everyone's concern when the knockout came from Berchelt, a lot had to do with the referee. When the first knockdown happened, it was a standing 8 count. I believe that we no longer in a world where standing 8 counts are a thing. Valdez was giving him an ass whooping that he never recovered from. And you could have salvaged the fighter by stopping it right there. Just let him get a couple of more punches in and then stop it because it wasn't going to get any better. And what we ended up seeing was something similar to what happened to Junior Dos Santos versus Cain Velasquez, where that was a life-changing ass whooping where I can't think of a fighter who's come back from that.
It's really difficult. These guys pay such a huge price, and it's a lot every single time, right? We see fights where guys leave parts of themselves in there. And we saw it right there with Miguel Berchelt. Even if he comes back and he's good, part of himself was left there. You can't take that kind of ass whooping without leaving something behind. And that's part of what makes this sport beautiful. It's also it's part of what makes being a fan of this sport so difficult sometimes, right? Is because you have to reconcile with that. It's difficult to say, with Miguel Berchelt, when he comes back, how is he going to look and what's it going to be up to? Do you think he comes back at 130 or do you think he comes back at 135?
He has to come back at 135. I just can't see him making that weight anymore. And man, honestly, man, if he told me I called it quits, I would actually kind of be happy because I just honestly don't see him being able to perform at the same level again. But you know what? I've been surprised. Alistair Overeem had a lot of knockouts that he came back from. Jorge Linares, he got knocked out most of the 2000s and came back into the 2010s to have a good second act of his career. So you never really know, but I would like him to take a full year off like Manny Pacquiao did after the knockout of Marquez. But the thing is, I don't know if he's at the financial position that Pacquiao was to take a year off. I don't know if he's made that much money. So going forward for him, I would love to see him in a higher weight class and hopefully take a couple of soft touches on his way up.
I agree. I would love to get him on the who's homeboy. It's kind of maybe a bad example now because he got knocked out by
Jerry.
No, I was going to say the guy who got knocked out by Gervonta Davis in his last fight.
Oh yeah. Santa
Cruz. Take that nice Santa Cruz path where you just knock out, just trash can after trash can for 2 years. I mean, for real, at a certain point, I do want to push back about something around the stoppage, and then I want to ask you about the corner and if they should have stopped it. But I didn't see it as a bad 8 count. What was it, the 5th, the 6th, something in there?
Yeah.
Whenever he did knock him down, I think it was the 4th. Same round as Warrington, by the way. Interesting. When he did knock him down, if the ropes weren't there, he would have fallen. In that case, I believe the referee is supposed to intervene.
Okay.
And call that as a knockdown. You can't like be literally just held up against the ropes. If you're standing against the ropes and they're going in, then you can't do anything. But if they're falling and the ropes happen to catch them as they're falling, then the referee is supposed to intervene.
Okay, so he's supposed to step in. I thought it was a judgment call, but
it wasn't a judgment call. It's exactly what the referee was supposed to do that night.
Okay. Where do you see Valdez go here? Let's go through the weight. Let's go through the weight class.
2 serums in 1 with 21 potent plant extracts, including turmeric, in 7 days.
Excuse whatever noise that is. I have.
And more radiant.
Excuse, I'm digging on it. No, Oscar Valdez. Where should he go next? So the guy who was sitting ringside, was he sitting ringside? He was at least calling him out as loud as he could and saying, "We need to make this happen. It's in house." There's a lot of things that make this fight look like it's next and look like it's going to be a big deal, and that's Valdez versus Shakur Stevenson, right?
Yeah.
So, Stevenson, did you pull up a porn window and get distracted? Are you agreeing? What's going on?
No. I'm agreeing, but I'm not trying to cut you off at the same time.
It should be Shakur.
Yeah. No, it should definitely be Shakur Stevenson porn window. It should definitely be Shakur Stevenson because they're in-house. Most of the fights that I want to see Valdez fight, unfortunately, are over at another network. Last week, we saw Jojo Diaz fight, and he didn't necessarily look as good, but I would have been interested in that fight. Tevin Farmer's on that side as well. Jamel Herring is someone who could possibly fight him in here. But, man, it just seems like the way that this new generation is elevating. You got the Teofimo Lopez's, the Ryan Garcias, the Devin Haney's. The Shakur Stevens is the guy who's kind of being left behind. And I think this is the perfect fight. Valdez now elevates to the #1 guy in this weight class. Shakur Stevens has been knocking at the door to become a major player. And, yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. I think that should be the next fight.